Let me ask you a simple but life-changing question. Who is responsible for your life right now? Not your past, not your parents, not your boss, not the economy, not luck. You are. The moment you fully accept this truth, everything changes. Most people spend their entire lives giving away their power. They blame circumstances, they blame people, they blame timing. But blame is nothing more than a way to stay comfortable while staying stuck. Taking responsibility doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means everything is your responsibility. To change, the first secret to taking full responsibility for your life is this. Stop waiting for permission to change. No one is coming to save you. No perfect moment is coming. No signal from the universe is required. The second you decide, this is my life, and I will own every result, you reclaim your power. What can I do differently next time? When you fail, say, what did this teach me? When life hits hard, respond with, this will not break me, this will build me. Responsible people don't complain, they create, they don't wait, they act, they don't make excuses, they make progress. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of the decisions you make when no one is watching. So today, make a decision, own your mindset, own your actions, own your future, because the moment you take full responsibility for your life, you take back control, and that's when everything changes. Responsibility is not just a moral idea or a motivational phrase. It is the greatest source of personal power a human being can ever access. The moment you truly understand that responsibility equals power, your entire relationship with life changes. Most people believe responsibility is a burden, something heavy, something forced on them by circumstances, society, or expectations. But in reality, responsibility is freedom. It is the ability to respond, the ability to choose, the ability to decide what meaning you give to everything that happens to you. When you avoid responsibility, you may feel temporary relief, but you permanently give away control. Every time you say, it's not my fault, you are also saying, it's not in my control. And if it's not in your control, you are powerless to change it. That is why blaming others, blaming situations, blaming luck, or blaming the past feels good in the short term but destroys you in the long term. It robs you of strength, confidence, and self-respect. Responsibility, on the other hand, may feel uncomfortable at first, but it gives you something priceless, ownership over your life. Taking responsibility does not mean beating yourself up or living in guilt. It means standing in truth. It means looking at your life exactly as it is and saying, this is where I am, and I own it. From that place, real change becomes possible. As long as you believe someone else controls your outcomes, you will wait for them to change. And waiting is the most dangerous habit of all. People wait for motivation, wait for support, wait for the right time, wait for someone to believe in them. But responsibility says, I move first. Responsibility says, even if no one helps me, I will help myself. When you take full responsibility, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I do about it? That shift in thinking separates leaders from followers, winners from victims, builders from complainers. Life will always be unpredictable. Pain will happen. Failure will happen. Loss will happen. Responsibility does not protect you from hardship, but it gives you the power to rise from it. Two people can face the same problem. One becomes bitter, the other becomes better. The difference is responsibility. Responsibility trains your mind to focus on solutions instead of stories. Victim thinking creates stories about why things are unfair. Responsible thinking creates strategies for improvement. When something goes wrong, instead of wasting energy on excuses, you invest energy into growth. You ask yourself what you can learn, what skill you need to develop, what habit you must change. This mindset transforms obstacles into teachers and setbacks into preparation for success. Owning responsibility also builds self-trust. Every time you take responsibility for your actions and follow through, you send a message to yourself that you are reliable. Confidence does not come from positive affirmations alone. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. When you say, I will do this, and you do it, your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes and start seeing yourself as someone who acts. That identity shift is powerful because you always act in alignment with who you believe you are. Responsibility also removes fear of judgment. When you fully own your life, you stop needing approval. You stop living according to others' expectations and start living according to your values. You understand that criticism does not define you, and praise does not control you. You are driven by purpose, not by validation. This emotional independence is a form of power that very few people achieve, yet it is available to anyone willing to take responsibility. Another powerful aspect of responsibility is that it returns your focus to the present moment. Blame lives in the past. Anxiety lives in the future. Responsibility lives in the now. You cannot change what already happened, and you cannot control everything that will happen, but you can always control what you do next. Responsibility anchors you in action. It reminds you that progress is made one decision at a time, one habit at a time, one step at a time. When you fully accept responsibility, you also become resilient. You stop collapsing when things go wrong because you no longer expect life to be easy. You expect yourself to be strong. You understand that setbacks are not signs to quit, they are signals to adapt. Responsibility builds mental toughness because it removes entitlement. You stop expecting life to give you comfort and start demanding excellence from yourself. Most importantly, responsibility reconnects you to your purpose. You realize that your life is not something that happens to you, it is something you create. Your background does not define your future unless you allow it to. Your mistakes do not disqualify you unless you refuse to learn from them. Responsibility places the pen back in your hand and reminds you that you are the author of your story. The truth is simple but not easy. The level of responsibility you take is the level of power you experience. If you take partial responsibility, you will have partial results. If you take full responsibility, you unlock your full potential. This is not about perfection. It is about ownership of your thoughts, ownership of your actions, ownership of your growth. When you accept that responsibility equals power, you stop feeling like life is happening against you and start realizing it is happening for you. And once you understand that, nothing can truly stop you because you no longer give your power away. Every human life is shaped not by one dramatic moment, but by thousands of small decisions made day after day. Most people believe destiny is something mysterious, something written by fate, luck, or circumstances beyond their control. But the truth is far simpler and far more empowering. Destiny is designed through decision. What you choose to focus on, what you choose to tolerate, what you choose to pursue, and what you choose to walk away from quietly shapes the direction of your entire life. Long before success or failure becomes visible, it is already decided in the private moments where choices are made. Many people underestimate the power of daily decisions because the effects are not immediate. Skipping one workout doesn't make you unhealthy overnight. Avoiding one difficult conversation doesn't destroy a relationship instantly. Procrastinating one task doesn't ruin a career in a day. But these small decisions compound. Over time, they create patterns, and patterns create outcomes. Life does not suddenly change. It gradually reveals what you have been choosing all along. Destiny is not an event you arrive at. It is a path you walk on through repeated decisions. Every decision you make is a vote for the person you are becoming. When you choose discipline, you vote for strength. When you choose comfort, you vote for stagnation. When you choose courage, you vote for growth. When you choose fear, you vote for limitation. These votes accumulate and eventually they form your identity. You don't wake up one day confident or broken, successful or defeated. You become that way by consistently choosing one direction over another. Decisions are powerful because they shape both your actions and your mindset. What you repeatedly decide to do becomes what you believe is normal. If you decide to settle, mediocrity feels acceptable. If you decide to push yourself, growth feels natural. The mind adapts to the standards you set through your choices. This is why raising your standards through conscious decision-making is one of the fastest ways to change your life. The moment you decide that excuses are no longer acceptable, your behavior begins to change to match that decision. Many people blame circumstances for their outcomes, but circumstances are often the result of earlier decisions. Financial stress is usually the result of spending decisions, learning decisions, or risk decisions made over time. Relationship struggles are often the result of communication decisions, boundary decisions, or forgiveness decisions. Health problems are frequently connected to lifestyle decisions, energy decisions, and self-care decisions. This is not about guilt or shame. It is about awareness. Awareness gives you the ability to choose differently. What makes decisions even more powerful is that they determine what you focus on. Focus controls emotion, and emotion drives action. When you decide to focus on problems, you feel overwhelmed and stuck. When you decide to focus on solutions, you feel energized and capable. Two people can be in the same situation. But the one who decides to focus on growth will experience life very differently from the one who decides to focus on fear. The external world may be the same, but the internal experience is completely different. Decisions also shape your future by determining what you practice. Whatever you decide to do consistently, you improve at. If you decide to practice discipline, you become disciplined. If you decide to practice avoidance, you become skilled at escaping responsibility. Skills are not talents you are born with. They are developed through repeated choices. Success is rarely about intelligence or luck. It is about deciding to practice the right habits long enough for them to compound. One of the most important decisions a person can make is how they respond to failure. Failure is inevitable, but defeat is optional. Some people decide that failure means they are not good enough and they stop trying. Others decide that failure is feedback and they adjust their approach. That single decision determines whether failure becomes a stopping point or a stepping stone. History is filled with people who were not the most gifted but became great because they consistently decided not to quit. Decisions also define your boundaries. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are saying no to something that could grow you. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you teach others how to treat you. Boundaries are not created by words, they are created by decisions. When you decide what you will accept and what you will no longer tolerate, your life begins to align with your values. This alignment creates inner peace and clarity, which are essential for long-term success. Your future self is quietly being built by the decisions you make today. The life you dream about is not created by motivation bursts or emotional promises, but by disciplined decisions made, even when you don't feel like it. Waiting to feel ready is itself a decision, and often a costly one. Progress belongs to those who decide to act before they feel confident, not after. At the deepest level, decisions shape destiny because they define who you believe you are. When you decide, I am someone who finishes what I start, your actions follow. When you decide, I am someone who learns and grows, obstacles become opportunities. Identity-based decisions are powerful because they create consistency. You no longer rely on willpower, you rely on self-image. The future is not something you discover. It is something you decide. And the most powerful truth of all is that you are always deciding, whether consciously or unconsciously. When you make decisions intentionally, your life moves forward with purpose. When you leave decisions to habit, fear, or comfort, your life moves by default. Destiny does not reward intention. It rewards decision followed by action. In the end, the direction of your life will not be determined by what you wanted, hoped, or wished for. It will be determined by what you chose, again and again, even when it was difficult. That is why decisions shape destiny. And why taking control of your choices is the most direct way to take control of your future. Nothing holds a person back more powerfully than excuses. Excuses sound reasonable, they feel protective, and they give temporary comfort, but they quietly destroy momentum. Action, on the other hand, feels uncomfortable, uncertain, and sometimes frightening, yet it is the only force that creates real change. The difference between the life people want and the life they live is rarely a lack of knowledge or ability. It is the gap between intention and action. Excuses live in that gap, and progress dies there. Most excuses are disguised fears. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of being foolish, fear of not being good enough. Instead of admitting fear, people wrap it in logic. They say they are waiting for the right time, more information, more confidence, or better circumstances. But the truth is, confidence is not a prerequisite for action. It is a result of action. Clarity does not come before movement. It comes from movement. Every excuse delays the very growth people claim they are waiting for. Action is powerful because it interrupts overthinking. The mind can create endless reasons not to move, but the body can only act or not act. Once you take action, even imperfect action, the mental noise begins to quiet. You stop imagining outcomes and start experiencing reality. Reality, even when it is challenging, is far more manageable than the fears created in your mind. Action brings feedback, and feedback creates learning. Excuses bring stagnation, and stagnation creates frustration. Progress is built on small, consistent actions, not dramatic breakthroughs. People often wait for motivation to strike, believing that once they feel inspired, action will be easy. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Discipline built through action is dependable. When you act despite resistance, you train yourself to move forward regardless of mood. This ability to act without emotional permission is what separates high performers from chronic dreamers. Excuses also damage self-trust. Every time you promise yourself you will do something and then explain why you didn't, you weaken your belief in yourself. Over time, you stop taking your own goals seriously because experience has taught you that you will talk yourself out of them. Action restores self-trust. Even small actions send a message to your mind that you are someone who follows through. That message builds confidence far more effectively than positive thinking ever could. One of the most dangerous excuses is perfection. The desire to get everything right often becomes the reason nothing gets done. People delay starting because they want the perfect plan, the perfect conditions, or the perfect version of themselves. But perfection is not a standard. It is a hiding place for fear. Progress requires imperfection. Every meaningful achievement is built on trial, error, adjustment, and persistence. Action embraces imperfection and uses it as a teacher. Excuses also keep people emotionally comfortable but mentally stuck. Growth requires discomfort. It requires doing things before you feel ready, speaking up when your voice shakes, and trying again after disappointment. Excuses protect comfort but sacrifice growth. Action sacrifices comfort but builds strength. Over time, the discomfort of discipline becomes easier than the pain of regret. People who choose action learn to tolerate short-term discomfort in exchange for long-term fulfillment. Another reason action beats excuses is that the world rewards movement, not intention. Opportunities respond to effort. Skills respond to practice. Confidence responds to experience. No one is rewarded for what they plan to do. Life responds only to what you actually do. When you take action, you create momentum, and momentum makes the next action easier. Excuses stop momentum before it begins, making every future step feel heavier. Action also shifts identity. When you consistently act, you stop seeing yourself as someone who wants and start seeing yourself as someone who does. Identity is shaped by evidence, and action creates that evidence. Each step forward reinforces the belief that you are capable, resilient, and committed. This identity shift changes how you approach challenges. You no longer ask if you can handle them, you assume you will figure it out. Excuses often sound personal, but they are rarely unique. Almost everyone feels tired, busy, uncertain, or afraid at times. The difference is not the presence of these feelings, but the decision made in response to them. People who progress feel the same resistance as everyone else. They simply choose not to obey it. They act with fear, not after fear disappears. That choice, repeated consistently, builds extraordinary results over time. Action also creates clarity. Many people say they don't know what to do, when in reality, they don't know because they haven't tried. Understanding comes from engagement. Direction is discovered through movement. When you act, you learn what works and what doesn't. When you make excuses, you remain stuck in uncertainty. Action turns confusion into information and information into progress. Ultimately, excuses protect your ego, but action builds your life. Excuses allow you to avoid responsibility for outcomes. Action forces you to face reality and grow. The path forward is never about doing everything at once. It's about doing the next right thing, even when it feels uncomfortable. Progress is not made by those who wait for ideal conditions, but by those who move despite imperfect ones. In the end, your results will not reflect how much you wanted success, how much you thought about it, or how many reasons you had for delaying. They will reflect how often you chose action over excuse. Each time you act, you move closer to the person you are capable of becoming, and over time, those actions compound into a life that excuses could never create.